The security checkpoint at Naval Station Bayport rattled with the hum of its usual morning chaos. Vehicles queuing, radios crackling, the sharp metallic clang of ID scanners processing hundreds of personnel through the main gate. It was 0745, and the base was waking up with all the grace of a freight train. At the visitor processing desk inside Gate 7's administration building sat a woman who looked like she'd been assembled from spare parts of military regulation. Her name tag read C. Harper. No rank, no service branch. She wore a nondescript gray polo shirt with the base contractor logo embroidered on the pocket, khaki pants, and black work boots polished to a shine that suggested muscle memory rather than enthusiasm. Her dark blonde hair was pulled back in a low ponytail. Her face was pleasant but entirely forgettable. She moved with the kind of efficiency that made supervisors happy and co-workers indifferent. The morning had been unremarkable until Petty Officer First Class Derek Vance walked in. Vance was 26 and freshly minted from the Special Warfare Combatant Craft Crewman course, a SWIC operator who piloted high-speed insertion boats for SEAL teams. He wore his achievement like cologne, loud, pervasive, and designed to be noticed. His tan uniform was crisp. His warfare pin gleamed on his chest, and his swagger filled the narrow corridor like smoke. Behind him came his usual crew, 3 other SWIC graduates who'd been celebrating their completion for the past 72 hours with a kind of enthusiasm that typically ended in either marriage or court-martial. They were here to process visitor badges for families attending the afternoon graduation ceremony. Vance's parents were flying in from Ohio. His younger brother, still in high school, had been texting nonstop about how cool it was to have a special ops sibling. Harper didn't look up as they approached. She was stamping security badges with a rhythm that could have been set to a metronome. Thunk, pause, thunk, pause. Each motion identical, economical, mechanical. "Hey there, front desk," Vance called out, his voice pitched to Carrie. "Got a question for you." Harper set down her stamp, placed her pen, a simple black ballpoint, exactly parallel to the edge of her clipboard, and raised her eyes. Her gaze was neutral, calm, the color of still water. "How can I help you, Petty Officer Vance?" she asked. Her voice was even, professional, entirely devoid of deference or annoyance. Vance leaned on the counter, grinning. "You know my name, that's a start. So what's your rank? You Navy? Army? Or just a civilian playing dress-up on a military base?" His buddies snickered. One of them, a wiry guy named Ramirez, elbowed another. Harper's expression didn't change. She reached for the clipboard in front of her, flipped to the second page, and scanned it briefly. "Petty Officer Vance, your guest list has been confirmed. Your family members are cleared for entry. Please direct them to Visitor Lot C when they arrive. The ceremony begins at 1400. She slid a small packet of laminated badges across the counter. Vance didn't take them. He tilted his head, still grinning, but there was an edge creeping into it now, a sharpness that came from being dismissed when he'd expected engagement. "That's not what I asked," he said. "I asked what your rank is. Or do civilians not understand how military protocol works?" Harper folded her hands on the desk. Her posture was upright, spine straight, shoulders level. It was a bearing that would have taken Vance another 6 months of training to replicate, but he didn't notice. "I'm a contractor," she replied calmly. "I don't hold a rank." "Is there anything else I can assist you with today?" Ramirez leaned in, emboldened. "Come on, you work on a Navy base. You gotta know what we do, right? SWIC ops, high-speed boats. We're the guys who get the SEALs where they need to go. Pretty intense stuff." Harper's eyes flicked to him briefly, assessed, then returned to Vance. "I'm sure it is. Congratulations on your completion." It wasn't sarcasm. It wasn't warmth either. It was the verbal equivalent of a blank wall. Vance felt his jaw tighten. He'd expected deference, maybe a little awe. Instead, he was getting the same energy as a DMV clerk processing a license renewal. "You know," he said, voice louder now, "it wouldn't kill you to show a little respect. We just finished one of the toughest training pipelines in the military. The least you could do is acknowledge that." For the first time, Harper paused. Her hand, which had been reaching for another stack of forms, stopped. She looked at him fully, not with anger, not with fear, but with something far more unsettling. Clinical interest. Like a scientist watching a lab rat navigate a maze it had already failed twice. "Respect," she repeated, her tone unchanged, "is earned through behavior, Petty Officer, not demanded through volume." The air in the room shifted. Ramirez's grin faltered. The other two operators exchanged glances. Vance's face flushed. Before he could respond, the radio on Harper's desk crackled to life. Gate 7, this is Basecom. Radio check all posts. Prepare for comms verification ahead of the ceremony. Over. Harper picked up the handset without hesitation. Basecom, Gate 7. Roger, standing by for verification sequence. Over. Her voice was different now, clipped, authoritative, stripped of the administrative pleasantness. It was the voice of someone who'd spent years coordinating under pressure, not processing visitor badges. Gate 7, Basecom, initiating sequence Alpha. Confirm your comms integrity and stand by for cascade test. Basecom, Gate 7, 5x5. Ready for cascade. Over. Vance watched, his irritation momentarily forgotten. There was something about the way she handled the radio, smooth, automatic, like muscle memory, that didn't fit the image of a bored contractor shuffling paperwork. The radio test continued for another 2 minutes. Harper coordinated with 3 other security posts, using terminology that wasn't in any civilian handbook. Stand by for traffic, confirm your posture, relay to secondary. When it was over, she replaced the handset with the same economical precision she'd used for everything else. Vance was still standing there, now visibly confused. Harper looked at him. Your badges, Petty Officer. Please don't forget them. He took the packet, but his cocky grin was gone. His friends had gone quiet, too. As they walked away, Ramirez muttered, Dude, that was weird. She sounded like she's done that before. She's a contractor, Vance said, but his voice lacked conviction. They train them on radios. It's not that complicated. But it had felt complicated. It had felt like watching someone switch from autopilot to combat mode and back again without breaking stride. By noon, the base was buzzing with pre-ceremony energy. Families streamed through Gate 7, clutching visitor badges and cameras, eager to celebrate the men who just earned their place in the Brotherhood of Naval Special Warfare. Harper worked efficiently, processing guests, answering questions, directing traffic. She was polite, helpful, and entirely unremarkable. Except to one person. Senior Chief Petty Officer Marcus Trent had been watching her all morning. Trent was 52, with 30 years in the Navy, 15 of those with various special operations units. He had the kind of eyes that catalog details most people missed. The way someone stood, the economy of their movement, the subtle tells that separated amateurs from professionals. And everything about C. Harper screamed professional. It was in the way she instinctively scanned entry points when the door opened, the way her posture shifted, just slightly, when senior officers passed. The way she handled that radio like she'd coordinated operations in hostile territory, not visitor parking logistics. Trent had seen a lot of operators in his career. He knew what training looked like when it had been drilled so deep it became reflex. Harper wasn't a contractor, or if she was, she hadn't always been. He made a mental note to ask around quietly. But before he could, the situation escalated. It was 12:30 when Vance and his crew returned to the admin building, apparently unable to let the morning's interaction go. They'd spent the last hour at lunch feeding off each other's indignation, building a narrative where Harper's professionalism was reframed as disrespect. They were young, proud, and high on their recent success. In their minds, she represented everything civilian, soft, ignorant, unworthy of their time. Vance approached her desk again, his 3 friends flanking him like a pack. Hey, contractor, he said, voice dripping with condescension. Got another question for you. Harper didn't look up. She was sorting a stack of emergency contact forms, her movements methodical. How can I help you, Petty Officer Vance? Do you even understand what we do? Like, really understand? Or is this just a job where you punch a clock and go home? She set down the forms, looked at him. Petty Officer, I'm here to support the mission of this installation and the personnel assigned to it. If you have a specific concern or need assistance, I'm happy to help. If not, I have work to complete before the ceremony. It wasn't rude, it wasn't warm. It was a boundary, delivered without apology. Vance's jaw clenched. You know what your problem is? You don't appreciate what we do. We're out there risking our lives, and you're just stamping papers. Harper stood. The movement was so smooth, so controlled, that it almost didn't register as movement at all. But suddenly she was on her feet, and her posture had shifted into something unmistakably military. Shoulders back, weight balanced, chin level. Petty Officer Vance, she said, her voice still calm but carrying an edge now, like a blade wrapped in silk. Appreciation and respect are not the same thing. The former is a feeling, the latter is a choice. I suggest you consider which one you're actually asking for. Ramirez shifted uncomfortably. One of the other guys, a quiet operator named Lou, looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. But Vance had committed. Backing down now would mean losing face in front of his crew. You don't get to lecture me about respect, he snapped. You're a civilian. You don't wear the uniform. You don't take the oath. You don't rate. Harper's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes did. A flicker, brief and cold, like the shadow of a dorsal fin beneath still water. Noted, she said simply. Before Vance could respond, Senior Chief Trent appeared at the doorway. Petty Officer Vance, Trent said, his voice carrying the weight of 3 decades of authority. A word. Vance turned, his bravado faltering under Trent's steady gaze. Senior Chief, I was just... Now, Petty Officer. Vance followed Trent outside, his crew trailing behind like guilty children. Trent led them around the corner, out of earshot of the main desk. Then he turned, and his expression was granite. What the hell was that? Vance opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. Senior Chief, she was being disrespectful. She was doing her job, Trent cut him off. And you were being an ass. You want to know why? Because you're 26 years old, you just finished a tough school, and you think that makes you invincible. It doesn't. It makes you dangerous to yourself and everyone around you until you learn some humility. Ramirez looked at the ground. Liu's jaw tightened. That woman in there, Trent continued, his voice low and sharp, has been handling every task thrown at her today with more professionalism than you 4 combined. And instead of recognizing that, you decided to make her your entertainment. That's not warrior behavior. That's playground bully behavior. Vance felt his face burn. Senior Chief, we didn't mean, I don't care what you meant. I care what you did. Now you're going to go back in there, apologize like adults, and then you're going to leave her alone. Understood? Yes, Senior Chief. Trent watched them file back inside, shame radiating off them in waves. But as he turned to leave, he caught a glimpse of Harper through the window. She was back at her desk, stamping badges with the same mechanical rhythm. But her hand, just for a moment, had trembled. Trent's gut told him there was a story there, and he intended to find out what it was. The ceremony began at 1400 sharp. The base auditorium was packed with families, friends, and personnel from across the installation. The atmosphere was electric. Pride, relief, celebration, all swirling together in a space that smelled faintly of floor polish and anticipation. Vance and his crew sat near the front, their earlier swagger muted. They'd apologized to Harper, awkwardly, sincerely, and she'd accepted with the same professionalism she'd shown all day. But Vance couldn't shake the image of her handling that radio, or the way she'd stood when he'd pushed too far. There was something there, something that didn't fit. On stage, the base commander, Captain Olivia Cross, took the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice strong and clear. Today, we honor the newest members of our special warfare community. These men have endured months of training designed to break them. They didn't break. They adapted. They persevered. And today, they earn the right to serve at the highest levels of naval operations. The applause was thunderous. Cross continued, outlining the challenges, the sacrifices, the brotherhood. It was a speech Vance had heard a dozen times, but today it felt different. Maybe because Trent's words were still echoing in his head. Maybe because he was starting to realize that earning a warfare pin didn't automatically make you a good leader or a good person. The ceremony proceeded smoothly. Each graduate was called forward, awarded their certificate, and welcomed into the fold by senior leadership. But midway through, something unexpected happened. The lights in the auditorium flickered. Then the microphone cut out. Captain Cross tapped it twice, frowning. Technical difficulties, she said, her voice faint without amplification. Bear with us. A ripple of confusion spread through the crowd. Then the fire alarm blared. Not the low, steady tone of a drill. The sharp, urgent wail of an actual emergency. Cross's expression shifted instantly from ceremonial to tactical. Remain calm, she ordered, her command voice cutting through the noise even without a mic. Proceed to the nearest exit in an orderly fashion. Families began to move, some quickly, some hesitantly. Vance and his crew stood, instinctively scanning for threats, their training kicking in. But Senior Chief Trent was already moving toward the stage, his radio in hand. Basecom, this is Trent. Confirm alarm status. Over. Static. Basecom, Trent. Confirm alarm status. Over. More static. Cross looked at him, her expression grim. Comms are down? Yes, ma'am. The alarm continued to shriek. The crowd was moving faster now, parents clutching children, elderly guests struggling toward the exits. And then, from the back of the auditorium, a voice cut through the chaos. Clear. Calm. Commanding. Basecom, this is Lighthouse. I have eyes on the auditorium. Alarm appears to be a false trigger from the HVAC system. Requesting immediate reset and confirmation of all clear status. Over. Every head in the room turned. It was Harper. She was standing at the back, near the emergency exit, holding a handheld radio that she must have grabbed from somewhere. Her face was composed, her posture steady. She looked like she'd done this 1,000 times. A moment later, the alarm cut off. The sudden silence was deafening. Harper's radio crackled. Lighthouse Basecom. Confirmed false alarm. HVAC malfunction in Sector 3. All clear status restored. Thank you for the assist. Basecom Lighthouse. Roger. Out. She lowered the radio, clipped it to her belt, and looked at Captain Cross. Cross stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly, she nodded. Harper nodded back. And then she turned and walked out of the auditorium as if nothing had happened. The crowd, still reeling, began to murmur. Families returned to their seats, the ceremony resumed. But Senior Chief Trent was no longer watching the stage. He was watching the door Harper had just walked through. And he was absolutely certain now. She wasn't a contractor. Captain Cross's office was designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive oak desk, and enough commendations on the walls to make a 4-star general feel inadequate. But the woman herself, mid-40s, sharp-eyed, and possessing the kind of presence that made junior officers check their uniforms twice, wasn't interested in intimidation today. She was interested in answers. Across from her sat Senior Chief Trent, his weathered hands folded on his lap, and next to him, Lieutenant Commander Rachel Voss, the base's intelligence officer. Voss was 38, with auburn hair pulled into a tight bun and the kind of analytical gaze that could dissect a situation in seconds. All right, Cross said, leaning back in her chair. Let's talk about C. Harper. Trent nodded. Ma'am, I've been observing her all day. Her radio protocols, her situational awareness, her bearing, none of it matches a civilian contractor. What happened in the auditorium confirmed it. That call sign, Lighthouse, that's not something you make up on the spot. That's operational. Voss tapped her tablet, pulling up a file. I ran her name through the personnel database after the ceremony. Carolyn Harper, age 37, employed by Titan Security Solutions as a contractor for the past 9 months. Before that, there's a gap. No employment record, no tax filings, nothing for 3 years. Cross frowned. A gap like that usually means one of two things, prison or protection. Or both, Voss added. I reached out to a contact at NCIS. They're being cagey, but they didn't deny that Harper might be operating under a protective identity. Trent leaned forward. Ma'am, if she's under protection, there's a reason. And given her skill set, I bet my pension is tied to special operations. Cross was quiet for a moment, weighing her options. Get NCIS on the phone. I want answers. But tread carefully. If she's under protection, we could be putting her at risk by digging. Carolyn Harper, or whatever her real name was, sat alone in the small break room adjacent to Gate 7's admin building. The lights were off, the only illumination coming from the sodium lamps outside, casting everything in shades of amber and shadow. She'd replayed the auditorium moment a dozen times in her head. She shouldn't have used the call sign. She shouldn't have taken the radio. She should have stayed invisible, let someone else handle it. But old habits didn't die. They hibernated. And when the alarm went off, when the comms went down, her training had taken over. For those few seconds, she wasn't Carolyn Harper, contractor. She was Chief Warrant Officer Cameron Lighthouse Harlow, Naval Special Warfare Development Group, DevGRU, Gold Squadron. 12 years of classified operations, 4 combat deployments. More close calls than she cared to count. She'd left that life behind, or tried to. The door to the break room opened. Harper tensed, her hand instinctively moving toward her belt, where, in another life, she would have carried a sidearm. But it was just Senior Chief Trent. He didn't turn on the lights, he just pulled out a chair and sat down across from her, the table between them like a demilitarized zone. "Lighthouse," he said, quietly. Harper closed her eyes. "Don't. That's a DevGru call sign, specifically a Gold Squadron call sign. I know because I worked with Gold for 2 years as a liaison." She opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. "Then you know that call signs are classified, and you know better than to ask." Trent nodded slowly. "I also know that people don't just leave DevGru and end up stamping visitor badges at a mid-tier naval station. Not unless something went very, very wrong." Harper didn't respond. Trent leaned back, his expression softening. "Listen, I don't know your story, and I don't need to. But I do know that if you're here, under a different name, keeping your head down, it's because someone screwed you over. And I know that you didn't deserve the way Vance treated you today." Harper's jaw tightened. Vance is a kid. He didn't know. No, but he should have known better. And so should I have, for not stepping in sooner. They sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the building's ventilation system the only sound. Finally, Harper spoke. 3 years ago, I reported an officer in my chain of command for misappropriating funds meant for operational equipment. Turns out he wasn't just stealing. He was selling intel to a foreign contractor. NCIS investigated. I testified. He went to Leavenworth. Trent's expression darkened. His friends didn't take it well. Harper continued, her voice flat. "I got death threats. My family got death threats. NCIS put me in protective custody, gave me a new identity, and stashed me here. Far from Gold, far from the community, far from anyone who might recognize me." "Jesus," Trent muttered. Harper shrugged. "It is what it is. The threats have died down. NCIS cleared me to resume normal operations 6 months ago, but..." She trailed off, staring at her hands. "I don't know if I want to go back. That life, it takes everything from you. And when it's done, you don't know who you are without it." Trent nodded slowly. "So you're here, figuring it out, trying to. And then Vance happens." Harper let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah, Vance happens. And now I'm blowing my cover in front of 200 people because I can't let a goddamn fire alarm go unanswered." Trent smiled faintly. "For what it's worth, you handled it like a pro. That's the problem. I don't want to be a pro anymore. I want to be normal. Normal's overrated." Harper looked at him, and for the first time that day, she smiled. It was small, sad, but real. "Thanks, Senior Chief." "Trent. Call me Trent. Carolyn. Or Cameron. I'm not sure anymore." He stood, pushing his chair back. "Well, Carolyn/Cameron, you should know that Captain Cross wants to talk to you. Tomorrow. 0800. Harper's smile faded. "About? About who you are, and what happens next." Captain Cross's office felt even more intimidating the next morning. Harper. She decided to stick with that name for now. Sat in the same chair Trent had occupied the night before, her hands folded in her lap, her expression neutral. Cross studied her for a long moment. "NCIS confirmed your identity this morning. Chief Warrant Officer Cameron Harlow, retired. 12 years with DevGru, including 4 deployments to places that don't officially exist. Silver Star, 2 Bronze Stars, a handful of other commendations I'm not cleared to know about." Harper said nothing. "They also confirmed that you were placed under protective status after your testimony led to the conviction of a senior officer for espionage and corruption." Still nothing. Cross leaned forward. "So here's my question. Why are you still here? You were cleared to return to active duty 6 months ago. You could be back with Gold Squadron. You could be doing what you were trained to do. Instead, you're processing visitor badges." Harper met her gaze. "Because I needed to remember who I was before the uniform, before the deployments, before the missions that I can't talk about and the things I can't unsee." Cross nodded slowly. "Fair enough. But you can't hide forever, Chief. Especially not after yesterday. Word's spreading. People are asking questions. And if you're here, on my base, under my command, I need to know what you want. Harper took a breath. I want to stay. Not as a contractor, as myself. I want to train junior personnel, teach them the things I learned the hard way. Situational awareness, communication, de-escalation, the stuff that keeps people alive when the shooting stops. Cross considered this. You'd be okay with that? Being out in the open? I'm tired of hiding, Harper said simply. Cross smiled. All right, I'll make it happen. But you're going to have to deal with Vance. Harper groaned. Of course I am. The base-wide announcement came that afternoon. Effective immediately, Chief Warrant Officer Cameron Harlow, retired, will be assuming the role of Senior Training Advisor for Security and Tactical Operations. All personnel are encouraged to attend her introductory briefing on Friday at 1400. Vance read the message 3 times, his stomach sinking lower with each pass. Holy shit, Ramirez muttered. The contractor is DevGru. Lou looked like he was going to be sick. We harassed a DevGru operator. Vance didn't say anything. He just sat there, staring at his phone, feeling the weight of his own stupidity pressing down on him like a lead blanket. Friday's briefing was packed. Every junior operator on the base showed up, along with half the senior enlisted and a handful of officers who wanted to see the legend in person. Harlow now, stood at the front of the room in her service khakis, the rank insignia on her collar catching the light. She looked different somehow. Not harder, just complete. Like a puzzle that had finally found its missing piece. Good afternoon, she began, her voice steady and clear. My name is Cameron Harlow. For the past 9 months, I've been working here as a contractor. Before that, I spent 12 years with the Naval Special Warfare Development Group. I retired after circumstances made it necessary for me to step back. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. She paused, her gaze sweeping the room. I'm here to teach you the things they don't cover in training pipelines. The real-world stuff. The gray areas. The moments when your training fails and you have to rely on judgment, instinct, and the trust you've built with the people around you. Vance sat in the back, his hands clenched into fists. Harlow's eyes found him. I'm also here to teach you about respect. Not the kind you demand because of your rank or your pin. The kind you earn by treating people with dignity, even when you don't understand them, even when you think they don't rate. The room was silent. A few days ago, Harlow continued, I was disrespected by someone who thought I didn't belong here, who thought I didn't understand the mission, who thought I wasn't worth his time. Vance felt every eye in the room turned toward him. And you know what, Harlow said, her voice softening? He was wrong, but he was also young, and he learned. And that's what this is about. Learning. Growing. Becoming better than you were yesterday. She looked directly at Vance. Petty Officer Vance, stand up. Vance's heart stopped, but he stood, his face burning. You screwed up, Harlow said, but you also apologized, and you meant it. That takes guts. So here's what I'm offering. I want you in my first training cohort. You and your crew. Because I think you have the potential to be great. But you need to learn humility first. Interested? Vance swallowed hard. Yes, man. Harlow smiled. Good. Class starts Monday. Don't be late. Epilogue. 6 months later, Vance stood at the front of a classroom, addressing a group of new SWIC graduates. Listen up, he said, his voice carrying the weight of hard-earned wisdom. You just finished a tough school. That's great. But it doesn't make you special. It makes you dangerous to yourself and everyone around you until you learn some humility. In the back of the room, Cameron Harlow leaned against the wall, arms crossed, a faint smile on her face. Vance caught her eye, and she gave him a small nod. He'd learned, and so had she. Respect wasn't demanded. It was built. One hard lesson at a time.